What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with episode 57 of Dynasty Decisions. For those of you guys that are new around here, this is where we take your dynasty questions, your trade questions, your am I rebuilding, am I contending type of questions, and we break down what you should be doing with your dynasty rosters. We're getting into, training camp is going to be opening next week, so we're going to have a new, element added to the dynasty calendar, which I talked about in last week's video, where some of these face planners and terrible players are going to start to be hyped up because they're in the best shape of their life and they're looking good in shorts. So getting into an exciting time. The football season's right around the corner. So if you guys do enjoy this video at any point, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Danny, how you doing?
Yeah, doing well. And you kind of talked about, face planners are going to start getting hyped up. Get ready to get some free third round picks from that hype. If you guys still have any of those guys on your roster, easy pivots, easy flips. As soon as those little training camp buzzes, Terrace Marshall catches a red zone against air or a red zone pass against air and people are hyped up about it, you get your selling window. But I'm ready to roll and go through all these dynasty decision questions. Obviously, we're gearing more so towards the redraft season now, but I never have no time for Dynasty. I always love talking about Dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you guys that are wondering, am I going to be in this episode or not? We're at about early June. So the guys that are going to be in this episode are like, June 14th or earlier. And then the next episode will be about mid-June. So we are quite a bit behind in our Dynasty Decisions queue. As always, if you guys want to skip the line, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. But before we get into it, as always, got to hit the intro. Okay, so just a couple patron questions on this episode, mostly free questions here. Benjamin, first question that we have here, 12-team standard, one quarterback league with two flex and IDP. Obviously, we're not going to cover the IDP spots, but he's basically looking at how to rebuild. He took back this franchise, so an orphan, I'm guessing, in a terrible situation just before his 2021 rookie draft. He traded away guys like Aaron Rodgers, Rob Gronkowski, Michael Thomas, Dallas Goedert, Cordero Patterson, etc. And he did not put his IDP players in because he said, we don't care. But I am young and strong in this area. So that's good to know in your IDP format that you have some young building blocks. But looking at his team, is he, in a position where he needs to continue rebuilding? Is he in a position where he's starting to look towards competing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you're definitely in a rebuild here. In a one quarterback league, yeah, like the quarterback position has devalued to a degree, but you don't have a quarterback realistically that's going to even put up top 15 production. So you don't have a quarterback there. Running backs, realistically, yeah, you have a couple decent ones at the top, especially with Najee Harris, who's a really good one, but you don't have depth there. And wide receiver, while you have some nice young options, you don't really have any guys that are going to make their hay in terms of point production this year. So overall, I would agree with you. You are still in that rebuild. This is a team where a guy like Najee Harris, a guy like Miles Sanders, they are off my team as soon as week 4 comes along.
Yeah, and even Tyler Algier and Tyrion
Yep.
Davis-Price, if they're thrust into big workloads, Dearness Johnson, maybe if he gets traded or something like that, a lot of the running back production on your team, you have some guys that you should be able to get some value for. Maybe you want to go after a young quarterback in the process too. You could go after like a Zach Wilson or a Trey Lance using some of these guys. If somebody's willing to give you, Trey Lance and a 2023 first and a 2024 second for Najee Harris or something like that, you might be able to get away with something like that in a one quarterback league. So a number of things that you could do, but I agree with Danny. There's not a ton of building blocks here. The best asset on your team is a running back who's 24 years old, up with a big workload. So you definitely want to get that production off of your team. Looking at his rookie draft, we can kind of just go over it. Didn't have a lot of high end production. Like he said, this team was in really, really bad shape coming into this season. So Chris Olave at 108. Again, I probably would have went with a guy like Jameson Williams if he was there, just given the fact that you're in a full rebuild, but I'm assuming he was probably off the board. So I don't mind that pick. Again, he gets some defensive players with Aiden Hutchinson there. Alec Pierce at the 208 is probably fine. Algier and Davis-Price probably fine as well. So overall, looks like you got a lot of work to do. You have 3 1s next year, though, which is definitely helpful. I would start advising you, if you can, to go towards 2024 capital. You don't have any listed here, so I'm assuming maybe you can't trade for it, but if you can go to your commissioner and say, hey, I'll pay like my buy-in for 2024, I would start targeting that draft class.
Yeah, and if you want some more information on why we love to target the 2024 class, there's actually a video on the channel. Buy these assets now. Basically, when it comes to buying the 2024 class, the way I kind of summed it up is everybody knows, everybody and their mother basically knows how good the 2023 class is top to bottom, and they are valued, those picks are valued accordingly. Whereas the 2024 picks haven't necessarily caught up yet, as you know, we've said. So if you can target that class, which already projects to be a good class at probably what 65% of the eventual cost that will be following this season, you could stock up on that draft, monopolize that draft. Ultimately, even in your rookie draft in 2023, if you can get packages where, say, you have the 104 next year and somebody's willing to give you 2024 first because they're looking to compete, those are the type of transitions that you could do furthermore. But as Corey said, Najee Harris, Miles Sanders, you listen to a couple guys in here in blue that you're hoping to trade in season. I agree. If Marlon Mack is the starting running back after 4 weeks for the Houston Texans, and he's getting, let's just say 17 plus touches per game, which is in the realm of possibilities given the fact that Damian Pierce is a 4th-round pick. We don't know what his workload is going to be early in the season, still a rookie. So if Marlon Mack does have a workload and he has an RB2 start to the year, that gives you a little bit of a pocket to potentially go after maybe Marlon Mack in a third for a 2024 second.
Yeah, I would say going forward, all I'm targeting is 2024 picks because, like Danny said, everybody knows, or most people know, the 2023 value of draft picks right now, and you might even be able to use that to your advantage. If you have a projected late 2023 first, and you wanted to, take Darnell Mooney for example, and a late 2023 first, and secure yourself a stud asset, maybe because they're so high on that 2023 class that they'll do anything for that kind of draft capital, you might be able to get away with like stealing like a CD Lamb or something like that, or go after like multiple 2024 draft picks as a result of a trade like that. So I think you're in a pretty rough spot right now, but you still have plenty of moves that you can make. You have some young tight ends that could turn into something as well. As all your players are highlighted in blue, they might have some value. Marlon Mack, I think, is a sneaky, like, if you can send a 4th-round pick for Marlon Mack as a contender, I think you might be able to get him for that. And he might actually, like Danny said, start off the season as like a borderline RB2 flex play.
Yep. No, I agree. So overall, I mean, looking at this team, you mentioned a rough spot, but I think the transitions that you've already made, combined with the draft that you had, I think you're in a good place right now in terms of starting out that stretch of your rebuild. By 2024, based off the progress you've already done, based off the draft capital you've already accumulated, and some of the building blocks, as we've said, you can turn this thing around quite a bit easily, in my opinion. So overall, good work, Benjamin. Keep plugging away and exploiting some value in season.
Yeah, so we can move on to the next team, which is from Jer, again, another patron. In this league format, so he has 4 teams listed because this is how his division is set up in his league. He is team 4 on the far right side. The starting format's a little weird. You start 6 players total. One of them has to be a quarterback. You can choose to start 1 or 2 running backs, and then it's pretty much all flexes after that. So he has a number of offseason trades listed here, but you guys can see his team. He has, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson as his main quarterbacks, J.K. Dobbins, Breece Hall, et cetera, at running back there, Jefferson, Chase, and Higgins, and Pittman, and Keenan Allen, Elijah Moore at wide receiver. So very strong there. And then Dawson Knox, Hunter Henry, Logan Thomas at tight end. So a number of different combinations, as you guys can see, with how you can start your lineup, which is definitely interesting for sure. He basically wanted to know, for the most part, like, how is his team relative to the rest of the teams in the division? And also, he said he went 14-2 and won the championship last year. And he said he's looking to repeat, made some trades to acquire more assets. So he definitely sold some of his aging production. He didn't realize both of his main running backs, J.K. Dobbins and Breece Hall, have the same bye week. And his other question is basically, what do we think of his trades? Should he have kept Najee Harris, or should he trade for another running back and just roll this out week 1? So overall, looking at the team, what are your thoughts? Do you think he can compete with this team? And we'll go through the trades after that.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at this team, it's clear to me that you can absolutely compete with this team. Obviously, the main question mark is running back 3, but at the end of the day, we're not looking to set our lineup over here in July. That's easily something you can string together in season. Not to mention, I mean, Gus Edwards, Michael Carter should have some instances where, I mean, to be fair, for Michael Carter, you have Breece Hall, but I was basically going to say they should have instances where they would work into your flex. And I mean, looking at this team,
you're always going to be starting 5 wide receivers. Sorry to interrupt
Absolutely.
you, but with this team format, you're always going to start 1 running back anyway, right? Like J.K. Dobbins and Breece Hall. Between those guys, if Dobbins isn't ready week 1, maybe you can get some early season production out of Breece Hall. Whatever the case is, you want Jefferson, Chase, Higgins, Pittman, and Keenan Allen in your lineup every single week. And Elijah Moore, if you could possibly swing that, but you won't even be able to. So Given your team format, and I really love when leagues are like this because it gives you so much flexibility with how you build your team. You don't have to, worry about running back at all in a format like this if you have one anchor. So yeah, I think you're in a good spot in terms of how strong that wide receiver core is.
Yep, for sure. So we can look at some of these deals here on the right side. He ended up trading away Clyde Edwards-Helaire for the 112 and then flipped the 112 in a 2023 second for a projected early 2023 first. So right off the bat, you basically flipped Clyde Edwards-Helaire in a second into what projects to be an early first. I don't know what that guy is doing, but fair play, Jared, because this is a fantastic deal.
Yeah, easy trade. We can move on to the next one. Traded away Najee Harris for the 101 and 111. Drafted Breece Hall at 101, and then traded the 111 for a 2023 first. Yeah, so if you can get two first value for Najee Harris of any kind, like mid first values, that's definitely a good move. And you got the 101 out of one of those first, so definitely a great value there. I know Danny has Breece Hall straight up rated over Najee Harris. I don't personally, but it is close enough for me that a 2023 first, which is what you netted out of this trade, is definitely enough for me to move off of Najee Harris.
I have Breece Hall ranked straight up over Najee. Even if you're under the belief, you'd rather have Najee than Breece Hall because you're a contender, I'm fine with that. But you can tell me right now you're flipping Najee into Breece and a first round pick. Phenomenal deal. You absolutely took this guy to the woodshed. We can move on to the final deal. And here, you traded away your 2023 first, Rashad Penny in a third for Allen Carter in a fourth. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a fan of doing this move right now because you're accepting all the risk that a 29-year-old wide receiver has in the offseason. Like if anything happens to Keenan Allen or he misses a stretch or, hamstring pull or something like that, you're going to lose value right off the bat. And I don't necessarily view it as a thing where Keenan Allen's value is going to go above what you just paid in season. So this is not a move I would do right now. Honestly, I still think it's a little much, even if it was in season, because giving away a 2023 first, knowing the value, especially relative to the market right now, I think you could have probably eked out a little bit more.
I love Keenan Allen this year for redraft, so I'm cool making this move. I agree that
In
you
July,
could
though?
probably waited a couple weeks, but I think the value is probably fine. I think Penny versus Carter is probably a wash. The third for the fourth, I don't really give a shit about. And the first, I'm cool giving up a late first for Keenan Allen if I'm a contender, and you are definitely a contender, so I'm definitely cool with that. He also does have an early first, like you said, projected mid to late 2023 first, so he does have 2-1 still. Despite giving away his own first. It looks like he has no picks, though, in round 2 or 3 in 2023, and he has all of his picks in 2024. So what I'd be looking to do come the start of the season is probably secure an RB3 of some kind using maybe like a 2024 second because you do have all your picks there. I'm probably not going to make a splash and send one of my firsts away for somebody, but if somebody in your league is rebuilding and they have like Leonard Fournette and, a wide receiver or Leonard Fournette and a better quarterback or something, and they're like all in on the 2023 class, and you can send that mid to late first away for like a great running back like Leonard Fournette this year and another piece on top of it, you might be able to pull off something like that. But I would probably be, like Danny said, be patient, wait until the season gets closer, and then look to address that RB3 position at that point in time. Because like I said earlier, you probably don't want to be starting more than one running back anyway. And there's a chance that we get to the start of the season and J.K. Dobbins is fine. And he's going to be your main running back, and Breece Hall might be a workhorse running back by week 1. We have no idea yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just taking in that you only have to start one running back a week is very crucial because if Dobbins gets off to a slow start, you just set it and forget it with Breece Hall. You don't have to worry about it. And then obviously once Dobbins is fully healthy, you have a decision point. Do you want to start one running back, or do you want to start two running backs? At least with the fact that you can only start up to two running backs in this league, it gives you a lot more lenience in terms of your overall depth that you have to provide. So I love this team. I think that you're ready to compete right off the bat. You said you won the championship last year. You're going to be well within that range this year, especially given the strength of that wide receiver core to carry you.
Yeah, and to answer your initial question too, your team is definitely the best in your division. The only other team that has like the superstar talent that you have is Team 1, but they have like no depth at wide receiver. Like obviously Jalen Hurts, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, and Kyle Pitts. Like that's a really good core to have. But I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's their RB2. They have Russell Gage and Devontae Parker and shit at wide receiver. So not great built out there. And then the other two teams in the middle are kind of just like middle of the pack type teams, in my opinion. So I think you do have the best team in your division for sure. As long as those running backs can pay off for you, I think you should be in a great spot. Let's move on to the next team, though. In Collin's team, Superflex League, PPR, quarterbacks, Trey Lance, Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota as his main guys there. Running backs, David Montgomery, J.K. Dobbins, Ramondre Stevenson, etc. And then he has Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, mainly at wide receiver there. And then Darren Waller, Dawson Knox, his main tight ends. Looks like he has all of his picks in the future draft classes. Like I said, it's a super flex league, half PPR. He's basically looking for opinions about direction to take his team, potential trades, and strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear as day to me that you should go and try to contend with this team. Like the only real weakness I would say would be at the quarterback 3 spot long term. But I mean, if Mariota is a starter for 6 weeks this year, that'll be fine for you. Not to mention you can makeshift a spot at that point. Your running backs, you don't have top end talent, but that makes up for the fact that your wide receiver talent, like you should have 2 of the top 4 or 5 overall wide receivers this year. Another potential wide receiver one with DJ Moore and a ton of depth there. Not to mention, again, if you realize in season, hey, I want an elite type of running back to push me over the top because you started out like 4-1, 5-1, you can go up and buy that production because you have all of your picks. So overall, it's clear as day to me. I would try to contend with this team. I think you should be at least one of the top 3 or 4 teams in your league at minimum. Unless this is like a 10-year league and there's some absolute monsters, I don't think you should be out of the contending range.
Yeah, for sure. Like Danny said, if you get to mid-season point and your team's doing really well, and the guy with Derrick Henry is trying to sell him for like 2 seconds or something like that, you might be able to make a move like that at the mid-season point. But yeah, again, to Danny's point, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, Darren Waller, those guys are going to help carry your team from a point production standpoint. He does have a number of other questions here. Specifically curious about your take on Trey Lance as QB1 and our views on KJ Osborne and Michael Gallup's value over the next couple of years. So Trey Lance, as long as he's a starter for the 49ers, I'm totally fine having him as my QB1. And on those like wide receivers, KJ Osborne, I think will be like a boomer bust, like wide receiver 4 flex option this year. I'm not excited about him, but I think he's going to have his weeks here and there. I think he's a good pick in best ball as a result of that. And Michael Gallup's value over the next few years should continue to rise because they don't have Amari Cooper there anymore. He's coming off of a major injury. Once he's back on the field, he should be, at least, 1.2 times his value as it currently stands right now. And we know, on field wise, this guy can produce, a 1,200 yard season or whatever he produced in 2019.
Yeah, no, he's got the talent. He might be deflated in terms of value right now because of that injury, but as soon as he comes back, I think he can figure into a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type of production area, given the strength of this offense, given the amount of times they're going to throw the ball. Michael Gallup is a stud talent that is not going to fill in vacated targets for Amari Cooper, but more so he's going to earn his own targets because he's the type of player that can do so. Not to mention, I mean, you mentioned with KJ Osborne, I'm a little bit more bullish. I do think that with KJ Osborne, I think flat level, you mentioned it, flex, wide receiver 4 type of appeal. But as we know, as much as I love Adam Thielen going into redraft this year, still talking about a 32-year-old wide receiver that has not finished a season in the last, 3-4 years. So if you're getting that type of bonus too, where if Thielen were to miss any time, you're getting KJ Osborne as the wide receiver 2 on what should be one of the more high-paced offenses now this year with Kevin O'Connell coming in. I think KJ Osborne is actually a really, really sneaky pick and could give you top 30 level production at minimum if Adam Thielen were to miss any time.
Right. My only thing with like a 5th round invested wide receiver is that if Thielen were to be gone, let's say they cut bait with him
Trade
after
for
this
one?
year because they would just draft another guy in like
Yeah.
round 2 or
And
3 to go alongside Jefferson. That's my only like concern with just saying, oh, Osborne could be the
no,
future wide receiver 2 of the team.
and I agree with that on base level. However, I do think that a KJ Osborne was actually good on his targets last year, and
No, he
he
was.
did
Yeah.
command targets. Like if this was just a regular ancillary receiver, I'd be like, oh no. But I do think that KJ Osborne could potentially take that sophomore leap, have a really good year this year. We'll see what happens. But overall, I mean, I think he's one of the fine later round investments that you can possibly make right now in Dynasty.
Yeah, and his last 2 questions basically are like, he thinks he has some flexibility because he has some foundational guys like Jamar Chase and Trey Lance and stuff like that.
Yep.
But he does also recognize that he is probably in a competing window. My like mid-season is definitely where you're going to reevaluate this team because if you get to mid-season and Chase and Kupp are suffering injuries or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to compete this year if that happens. And you might be wise to sell off a guy like David Montgomery, or sell off a guy like Cooper Kupp or Darren Waller or somebody like that. So again, kind of a wait and see approach at the midseason point. And he also says next year, should I rebuild? I mean, it all depends, right? If you think you can, compete again, then it's possible that you just, replenish a couple pieces with your draft picks and you go back into the season and try and compete again. But if you think, Cooper Kupp's going to fall off soon or, David Montgomery is a free agent and we haven't really seen where he's going to sign, it's possible that you can make that retool at that point in time. So I think overall, you're in a pretty good spot to compete, pretty decent future as well. A lot of flexibility to make some moves. So we can move on to the next team, though, and that is from Big Dynasty Guy. 12-team, half PPR, super flex with a 0.75 tight end premium, and he had the 8th pick. So it looks like this is a fresh startup, just drafted this team. At quarterback, he's got Deshaun Watson, Mac Jones, Ryan Tannehill. That's a very me quarterback core. Brees Hall, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Isaiah Spiller at running back, Justin Jefferson, Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman, Cortland Sutton, David Bell, etc. at wide receiver there, Rob Gronkowski, Tyler Higbee, etc. at tight end. So not in a great spot there, but he does have 2023 first, 2023 seconds, and then all of his other picks there. And he also has some trades listed that he made during the startup. So he's mainly asking, can this team compete in 2022? He feels like he needs some things to fall his way in order to do so. Obviously, Watson's suspension being a big one. Gronk, who we know is just retired, maybe coming back. Saquon Barkley and ETN to stay healthy. But if that isn't the case, he feels like he should aim for a rebuild and sell off what he can for 2023 capital. Now, first of all, to me, this, even if you can't compete this year, this is like a 1-year punt. So I would probably be going after guys like Calvin Ridley and Chris Godwin with this type of team, because 1 year from now, DK Metcalf also would make some sense, because this team is well set up to be a contender for the next like 3 years. But this year is your big question mark.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that. Basically, this year you do have, the Deshaun Watson suspension that might be looming.
Rookie running back.
Rookie running back, obviously Travis Etienne coming off a foot injury. Although I like him, there still is some risk there, as opposed to a guy like Derrick Henry hypothetically. And then at wide receiver, although I really love the team, I mean David Bell, for example, is a guy that I think is going to be better next year and on, as opposed to this year, specifically with the status of Deshaun Watson. And then, yeah, I mean, I think this team is well built. I think you have and can compete this year. However, I would agree with Corey that your main year to compete would most likely be 2023, even if you could maybe scrap, a 5 seed this year.
Yeah, and he said this was the type of league market that he's in. Most people were, redraft players. It's like a casual league market. People were taking Dalvin Cook in the 3rd round and stuff like that. Brees fell to him as the RB14 off the board in a dynasty startup, which is absolutely absurd value. He says he likes his team, but he feels like he made a bit of a mistake drafting RB early, while he might not be able to compete out of the gate. I mean, the bright side is that your running backs are still young. You didn't draft any like Joe Mixons or anything like that. And then he also says, what moves would you try and make as we approach the 2022 season? What do you think of the trades he made during the startup? And he feels like he sold Zach Wilson a little bit low, but he's not a believer whatsoever. So he said, thanks for the content, and hope to hear from us. So overall, let's break down these trades real quick.
Yep.
So in the startup, he traded away the 405, which became Kenneth Walker, and the 908, which became Desmond Ridder, in exchange for Mac Jones, and the 702, which became Zach Wilson.
For reference, I have Zach Wilson straight up ranked over Kenneth Walker, and I don't know who took Desmond Ridder at the 908, but that's an egregious pick. So you basically got 2 young starting quarterbacks for Kenneth Walker, a running back who is in a committee this year, and Desmond Ridder, who, yeah, maybe we hope he can become the starter for the Falcons, but realistically, there's a 3rd round investment quarterback on a
and
team
9th round's way too high for him, by the way.
Way too high. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons had a top 5 pick next year and replaced him. Like that it could be a Garner Minshew level situation for all we know next year. So love this deal for you. You got 2 quarterback liquid assets here. Absolutely love the deal. Next deal, you sent Derek Carr and Amari Cooper in exchange for Travis Etienne and Tom Brady. Yeah, I'll go out and get Travis Etienne here easily.
Yep. And then you eventually traded away Tom Brady at the 803 for the 907, which became Cortland Sutton at a 2023 second. I'd rather have Cortland Sutton straight up than Tom Brady. And it's not that Tom Brady isn't going to help a contender this year. Obviously he will, but it's a 1-year asset. Like Tom Brady, anybody who thinks they're getting multiple years out of him is being really, really optimistic. And I love Tom Brady. Obviously, I'm a Bucs fan. I don't want him to go anywhere, but I do think he will be done after this year. So getting a guy who's, a young receiver, has been productive in the past, plus a 2023 second, which is almost equivalent to Brady's value right now, I think is a great trade for you. You definitely did sell Zach Wilson too low. Marquise Brown, a 2023 second. I think that's like not a bad deal, but the thing is Zach Wilson is a quarterback, and he's going to hold some value. But knowing that Zach Wilson fell to the 702 in this draft, it's possible that this is probably a decent trade.
Yeah, like, again, face value, the 702 for the 804 in a second. I absolutely love. I mean, honestly, Marquise Brown in a second for Zach Wilson is probably about equivalent market value as a whole. The only problem I have is, given the fact that there's a 2 full round discrepancy between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson, and I actually prefer Wilson to Mac, maybe you could have gotten Marquise in a first for Mac. And if that's the case, like, I would much rather Marquise in the first rather than Mac, as opposed to Marquise in the second rather than Zach Wilson. Easily.
Yeah. Yeah. So overall, I probably agree with your assessment that you probably shouldn't have drafted so many running backs early and maybe look to solidify like another quarterback or something like that. But overall, I do think you built this thing out. Probably a 1-year punt this year. Maybe you want to transition away from some pieces if you can get some good value midseason. If somebody's willing to give you like a lot for Cortland Sutton or something like that, that would definitely make some sense.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because you said this is a more casual redraft centric league. You still have a lot of running back equity here to the point where if Saquon Barkley is looking like 2019 Saquon Barkley, and you can get a ton of value for Barkley relative to what you paid for him in the startup. Same thing with Travis Etienne. If Travis Etienne goes out next year and is the RB7 through 7 weeks, like you have pieces at running back where even though you're in a 1-year punt, you can flip for a crap ton of value considering the fact that these players are going to see that production and are going to prioritize that over draft capital. So you have a lot of fluidity with this team to be able to make those maneuvers in season.
Yeah, and like I said, rebuilding 1-year punt type of trade targets, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley make a ton of sense as well.
Yep.
Michael Gallup, anybody,
Gallup.
Jameson Williams, people coming off of major
Godwin.
injuries would definitely all be great to go after. So that's Big Dynasty Guys team. We'll move on to the next one here. But before we do that, as always, got to pay some bills around here. Hear from our sponsors over at Manscaped.
Hey lads, today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at Manscaped, the leaders in male grooming across the globe. All men strive for gold in their life. Gold medals, gold watches, gold chains, gold everything. Gold, yes, is very nice, but true artists know that platinum takes the cake, and Manscaped perfects their art with the introduction to their all-new Platinum Package 4.0. Manscaped's brand new Platinum Package 4.0 is the biggest bundle they've ever offered, giving you a bulk discount on Manscaped's top products. Inside this Platinum Package, you'll find all the perks of the Performance Package 4.0, the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer, Crop Preserver anti-chafing ball deodorant, and their Crop Reviver ball spray toner, along with the added products of their Ultra Premium Body Wash, Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner, and their Ultra Premium Deodorant. The Lawnmower 4.0 body trimmer and Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer feature proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to protect against your delicate parts and holes. Both are waterproof so you can shave with less mess. In addition to shaving, you can now completely upgrade your shower routine with the Ultra Premium Body Wash and Ultra Premium 2-in-1 Shampoo and Conditioner. You'll have your skin and hair feeling hydrated and smelling fresh. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Platinum Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort and boxers to the next level. This summer, it's time to join 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code BUSH for 20% off plus free shipping. Again, 20% off plus free shipping with the code BUSH at manscaped.com. Manscaped gives your manhood the proper treatment it deserves. We appreciate the support for the Fantasy Stock Exchange by our friends over at Manscaped and thank them for sponsoring today's video. And speaking of that video, let's get right back to it.
All right, big thanks to Manscaped. As always, promo code BUSH at checkout for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's get on to Pax's team here.
Yep, and with Pax's team, you guys can see a 2-quarterback super flex full PPR league. At quarterback, he's got Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, and Drew Lock. Running backs, Jamal Williams, J.D. McKissick, Keyshawn Vaughn, etc. there. Wide receivers headlined by Justin Jefferson, T. Higgins, and Chase Claypool. And then the gold standard at tight end with Kyle Pitts, along with 4 2023 ones, 3 2023 twos, 3 2023 threes, not to mention an extra 2024 first on the one he already has. So basically, he just kind of wanted us to look through his trades, give him, an idea of what we think about his team, what we think about what he's structured, and his overall direction that we think he should be taking. So it's clear as day to me that you have some generational, foundational type of pieces headlining this team with adequate draft capital to be able to add your ancillary pieces to make this thing a monster.
Yeah, it looks like he tore this thing down with the trades that he made too. So we can go over his tear down here. So the first trade, he takes Deontay Johnson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he traded them away in exchange for Brandon Cooks and James Conner. Now, given your current status, I'm guessing you eventually flipped these guys, which it looks like he did later on. So this might have been a trade that he made when he was thinking he could still contend or something like that. At face value, what do you think of this trade? Just, team situation aside.
So Deontay and CEH for Cooks and Connor. He actually mentioned, by the way, in the thing that he made a couple trades early that he didn't like, and then after watching us, he fixed. So mentioning this, I'm not a fan at all. I'm gonna
If
be
you were in
honest.
a big time win now contending window, I don't think this is terrible because James Conner should be like a back end RB1 type this year.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks should be like a solid wide receiver. There's a world where Brandon Cooks outscores Deontay Johnson this year. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's definitely possible. So, not a terrible trade, but again, given the current status of your team, I definitely think it wouldn't have made any sense. And then he sent away Zach Wilson. A lot of Zach Wilson hate today. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Zach Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown in exchange for Jared Goff, Chase Claypool, Kyron Williams,
I'm
and
fine with
2
it.
ones.
Yeah, I'm more than fine with it. I would put ARSB at around a 2024 first in terms of relative value, give or take. So if we're looking at it, a first, Claypool, Goff, et cetera, for Wilson, I'd be fine with taking that package, especially if you're in a full teardown.
Yeah, I think in a full teardown, I would have liked to hold on to Zach Wilson because I do think he's going to appreciate in value. But I think this is probably equivalent value. The next trade here, Kirk Cousins and Elijah Moore for Wentz, 2023 first and
Not a
2023
fan.
second. Danny made the face immediately.
Yeah.
I think Elijah Moore himself is worth 2023 first and 2023 second, and then Kirk Cousins is worth more than Carson Wentz by quite a bit.
Yeah, and even if you want to slice it, let's just say hypothetically, like again, we would rather Elijah Moore than a first trade up. But even if it was Elijah Moore in a first and then Cousins for Wentz in a
Wentz in a second.
second, that's about comparable value. But again, as we said, we would prefer Elijah Moore straight up over a random first. So
And
yeah,
I prefer Cousins than Wentz in a second as well.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, we were not a big fan of this deal. This deal, though, yeah, I mean, you sent James Conner in exchange for Jamal Williams, a second, third, and Mecole Hardman. I think this is about appropriate value. Obviously, with Jamal Williams, you're getting the upside where if Swift missed time or Williams has a couple boom weeks, you could probably potentially transition him into maybe a contender would give you a second at that point. Do you think you can get a late second if Swift missed any time from a contender?
Maybe it's possible.
On
It
there?
depends what their situation is. If they're in dire need of a running back, like I sent an early third round pick for Devontae Freeman last year as a contender.
Yep.
So it's definitely possible that somebody does something like that.
Yep.
Last trade here, Brandon Cooks and Kareem Hunt for a 2023 first, a
Yeah.
2023 third.
I
You
like
secure
it.
that first rounder that you're looking for. So it makes your team better in the long run. So I'm definitely okay with making that. At face value, might be, equivalent, or maybe even if a contender would be willing to give up that for Kareem Hunt and Brandon Cooks, it's not a bad trade. But I would say, yeah, given your team's situation, some of these trades were definitely not great because it looks like you already had a big war chest of draft capital the whole time. You didn't just like get all of it from making these trades. So I think I would have definitely disagreed with some of them. I would have tried to hold on to Zach Wilson in that one trade, but I do think you got some good value for it. But overall, you're in a pretty good spot. You have a foundational, tight end, obviously some foundational wide receivers, 4 ones to be able to add, quarterbacks, probably in the 2023 class, maybe a running back or something like that. And then a lot of picks to fill out the rest of your roster in the future.
Yeah. So for reference, we're not a big fans of the first and third deals, but I do like the second, fourth, and fifth for you in terms of the direction you're trying to go. In terms of general guidance, we went through the trades. We'll quickly go guidance here. Just keep carrying it down. Like, honestly, if, as we said, Jamal Williams gets off to a hot start, you can ship him. Basically, use those pieces that give you a production right now and try to liquidate those assets into future picks. Because, again, you mentioned a guy like Jamal Williams. If Carson Wentz, is slinging the ball 35 times a game and he starts off as the quarterback 14 and you could sell high on him, go for it. Same thing with Jared Goff. So overall, you have pieces that in season, when people see that production, are more so willing to overlook their potential long-term value, which is all you're realistically looking to gain here in terms of projectable long-term value.
Yeah, in the mid-round picks, I'd be using to my advantage as well. Because if
Yeah.
you can take, if Carson Wentz is like half decent as like a quarterback 2 for a team, and you can trade Carson Wentz in a 2023 second to get a 2024 first or something like that, I'm cool making trades like that to continue to stockpile that 2024 class. Because I think at this point in time, you have enough 2023 capital. People know the 2023 class is starting to get, hyped up and stuff. So I would be aiming to stack up 2024 as much as I can with some of the in-season moves that you can make.
And the great thing about this is because you basically have already monopolized that 2023 class. You always have the flexibility where you get into that rookie draft next year and you can go for 2024 capital plus because people are willing to overpay knowing that the 2023 class is the gold mine of fantasy football. I mean, that's where every other YouTube channel has talked about investing in gold. Well, guess what? You have gold in your hands. People are willing to pay a heavy sum for it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move on to the next team here. Quick Sixes team. 12 team PPR, tight end premium, super flex league. Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson as his main quarterbacks. Tony Pollard, James White as main running backs. Very zero RB type of build here with a lot of upside and pieces that you could transition midseason. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Elijah Moore, Chase Claypool mainly at wide receiver. Not a whole lot going on at tight end outside of some young guys there. 4 2023 firsts, and then no second, but he has all of his picks in the future draft classes. So, I mean, looking at this team, this is like the foundation type of team that you want to build here because you got 2 young quarterbacks, you got a bunch of young wide receivers, not a whole lot going on at running back outside of a bunch of handcuffs that should have a bunch of value should anything happen to the starter. A lot of these dudes, given your team situation, I'm going to be looking to transition to 2023 seconds. If David Montgomery misses 6 games, try and get a 2023 second for Khalil Herbert. If Antonio Gibson misses a couple games, see if you can flip Brian Robinson for a 2023 second. Same goes for Ty Davis Price, Hassan Haskins. I mean, even Damian Williams might have some value during the season. So overall, I really like the way that you've structured this. And even at tight end, I mean, while you don't have a lot of great guys there, a couple of years from now when you're ready to compete, who knows? Greg Dulcich, Jelani Woods, they have good draft capital. They could turn into something.
Yep, and adding to this team, from this team, he actually messaged me recently as well as an update. But basically, the guy who had Deshaun Watson was very worried about, his potential suspension, potentially what could happen this season. And he ended up trading one of the later projected 2023 firsts that he has straight up for Deshaun Watson. So a late projected 2023 one for Watson. So now you're looking at that quarterback core. You have Watson, Lawrence, and Wilson, and still have 3 2023 picks. Absolutely phenomenal deal for you there.
Yeah, and in that situation, Desmond Ridder, if he gets any starting time, I'm trying to flip him too.
Flip,
so
easy.
yeah, so you're in obviously a great spot here. Very good foundational team. You're going to be able to fill out your running back. You could compete as early as 2023, man. Like if you got 5 first-round picks, Deshaun Watson will be back on the field by then. You're going to be able to add, pretty much the entire 2023 running back class to this team, most likely, and be able to potentially turn this thing around as early as next season. For those of you guys that are rebuilders, 1-year productive struggles, Deshaun Watson is free cash right now. Like I have never seen a freer trade target than Deshaun Watson in Dynasty. He is simply too talented to stay off the field. I know he's a fucking sexual deviant and a predator, but like he's going to play football. That's just how the NFL works. And you can get him for like, I've seen him go for way less than 2023 first straight up. I've seen him go for 2 2s.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day here, we play fantasy football. We play 4-point, 6-point passing touchdown leagues. We don't play in point per morality leagues, realistically. Yeah. Again, I hate, if you feel offended, don't own him. But realistically, our whole goal is to put up points. And if you're getting a discount because of what he does off the field, I'm trying to score points. I'm trying to win my leagues.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, Deshaun Watson, those of you guys that are, rebuilding teams, there's another example of people just panic selling the guy. And we've had some word that he might not even get suspended the whole season. We don't really know where it's going to go yet, but if he only gets a 6-game suspension, this guy vaults immediately back up into a first-round startup pick and probably a top 8 startup pick at that. So let's get into the next team here, which is from Aaron. Shout out Key and Peele here. Quarterback Josh Allen, Davis Mills, Matt Corral there. Running back Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, AJ Dillon. Wide receivers Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, etc. there. And then tight end Mike Gesicki as his main guy. He has all of his own picks in the future with no extras. So just the bone stock draft capital.
Yeah, for sure. And for context, for those of you who are watching it, this is a 12-team Superflex with a 1.5 tight end premium, 11 starters in the starting lineup. He basically just kind of wanted us to look at to this team, maybe future direction. He also lists here that barely any future trades have been made thus far because half the league isn't paid in for 2023. So therefore, if they're not paid in for 2023, they can't trade those picks. So basically what he says here is, what's the general direction? What would you guys do with this team? And obviously, not having half the league paying for 2023 is kind of tough, but ultimately once they do pay in, that's kind of what I would look for is keep getting, liquid assets with the team because you clearly have a really, really solid young foundation with, Allen, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Waddle, Garrett Wilson, etc. there. This is a team where, guys like Cooper, guys like Sutton, guys like that, where if you can sell high, especially once those people are able to pay in for that 2023 season, I'd be looking to get as many picks as possible.
Yeah, I don't think this team can contend, unfortunately.
Agreed.
This is a super flex league, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so Josh Allen, Davis Mills, like obviously Josh Allen's a stud, but Davis Mills is your QB2, no real quarterback 3 outside of Davis Mills, who's already on shaky ground as your quarterback 2. Not an ideal situation to be in from a quarterback standpoint.
Agreed.
Your running backs are also young too, so it'd be pretty hard to compete this year with guys that like 2 of your best running backs are rookies. And your wide receiver core, while you have, some guys, there's no absolute superstar wide receiver ones this year for fantasy. And then in a tight end premium, you have Mike Gesicki as your main guy. So kind of like a middle of the pack team, I'd imagine, in your league. I'd probably be looking to do what Danny said, is sell off guys like Amari Cooper and Cortland Sutton, maybe AJ Dillon, guys that aren't going to be foundational pieces for you long term into future draft capital if you're able to, because you have a great foundation of guys that are going to be awesome in the future. It's just tough to project this team to be a superstar, win your league type of team when you're lacking that depth factor and at wide receiver, that superstar factor.
Yep. No, I agree. Overall, though, I mean, within a year, you can definitely be able to turn this around. It's just the only question mark long term, obviously, as Corey said, is at that quarterback spot. So if you can figure that out, like you have the building block pieces, especially in terms of a ceiling potential, to be able to contend. 2023, 2024 is about the window.
Well, and Watson makes a ton of sense for this team too. Like if you want to trade Amari Cooper and Cortland, I would give Amari Cooper and Cortland Sutton straight up for Deshaun Watson if you can, like in a heartbeat, because it would tank your own pick. You'd be able to go out and maybe sell high on the 101 or, whatever the case is, add Bijan to this team and flip one of your other running backs or something, and be able to build this thing out long term and add Deshaun Watson to Josh Allen, who's obviously going to be a great quarterback this year. And if you have to, somehow finagle Davis Mills into the trade to get it done because the guy like needs another quarterback or whatever, then you might be able to pull that off as well.
Yep. No, for sure. So overall, keep going at it. Keep acquiring liquidity with this team, Ron. We can move on to the next team here, and I'll let you take it away with BangKok.
Yeah, BangKok sends his team here. Current team, round 24 of the startup. So he's at the time that he sent me this, he wasn't actually done the startup yet, but he's probably obviously done it by now. 14 teams, Superflex, scaled PPR, where wide receivers and running backs are full point PPR. It is 2x tight end premium, where you get 2 points per reception for tight ends. So looking at the team here, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, Jameis Winston, Travis Etienne, AJ Dillon, Isaiah Spiller, Alex Madison, etc. At running back, wide receiver, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson, George Pickens Dawson Knox, Jelani Woods, mainly at tight end. 4 firsts in 2023, 2 firsts in 2024. Has a number of the trades that he made during the startup as well listed. So looking at this team, the one, critique I would have about it is that I wish you had built up more solidified stud wide receiver talent, but I do love that you got 2 great young quarterbacks. You have obviously Travis Etienne was just a good value in general, so I don't blame you for taking him, but I probably would have looked to have secured a little bit more foundation at wide receiver, but obviously that could come with your draft picks because you got 6 ones in the next 2 drafts.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Can we look at these trades? Like you flipped the 301 and 100 fab for the 508 and the 2023 first. Smash.
Yeah.
You flipped the 508 for the 802 and 2 firsts. Excuse me? Like, I don't know how you did that, because
I would be comfortable giving up the 508 and the 802 for the 2 firsts.
A heartbeat. Give me the
like that's crazy that you got that much value. So I mean, clearly these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing in your league. They have no idea how to value draft picks. The 701, you traded down from the 701 to the 812 and you picked up a 2023 first on top of it. And he also has a possible trade listed here where he could sell Jameis Winston for a first, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds.
Yes.
If you shave both the thirds and one of the second and both the seconds off this deal, if you can get a first straight up for Jameis Winston, I'm down to do that in a heartbeat. So if somebody's willing to give you 5 draft picks for Jameis Winston, easy trade to make.
If you could get a 2 and a 3 for Winston, I think that's fair. So the first, the second, and the third is just free money. So yeah, like I love this deal. If you can keep fleecing these kids, like if I'm seeing these deals right now, I can only imagine
pretty much every ounce of production on my team in this type of league format. Like Travis Etienne, once he's on the field producing points, you'll get 2 ones for him easily.
Christian fucking Watson, like if he catches a couple passes from Aaron Rodgers, you sell him to the Aaron Rodgers owner. Somebody gives you a
first.
You
can sell him in the preseason probably for a 2023 first.
Like, dude, just if the next time you submit this team, you don't have like half the picks in each of those next 2 drafts at least, I'm gonna be a little upset given this league market.
Yeah, like when you know this about your league market, you said they're all first-time Dynasty players, including yourself, but you have the benefit of watching us who are not first-time Dynasty players. And we know that this is how some league markets behave. So I know plenty of you guys will go down to the comments and be like, well, I can't make trades like that. Again, it's all about knowing your league market. Knowing your league market in this type of league, you know that you can sell pretty much any ounce of production for draft capital. If anybody's doing well on your team, Dawson Knox starts going off. It's a 2 tight end premium. You might be able to get a first for him straight up. You're going to be able to secure probably Michael Mayer in next year's draft anyway. So I'm cool selling off any and all tight end production on this team as well. AJ Dillon, Travis Etienne, Christian Watson, George Pickens, any of these guys that start going off during the season, just literally load up those next 2 draft classes because they're going to be good classes. They're going to have a lot of great players in it. And at the very worst case scenario, you can sell those picks in the future for more than what you paid for them.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree. Overall, dominate these classes and enjoy your championship run between 2024 and 2034, to be honest.
Yeah, and the guy, he says this Jameis Winston guy is panicking because he doesn't have a QB2. Like, again, locate those teams. If you see a guy with like a bunch of contending running backs and no QB2, be like, hey, you want Jameis Winston? You want, Justin Fields? You want, like, you can, and go vice versa with the running back position. You go to a team that has, a bunch of contending wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks and doesn't have a good running back too. Be like, hey, you want Travis Etienne or AJ Dillon? You could easily make some transitions like that. So yeah, next time you submit this team, you better have like 8 ones at least in the next 2 draft classes, because this is the foundation of a monster. You're going to punt your league buy-in for the next year, maybe 2, but you should be ready to absolutely dominate this league by the time these guys learn how to play Dynasty.
Yep. And I mean, in some leagues, it happens like that. People don't want to forfeit their buy-ins for a couple of years. So if you're willing to do that and you can, I mean, in the long run, quadruple your chances of winning a bunch of championships, like, yeah, the math ends up working out. Sure, you lose 2 buy-ins, but if you win 4 championships in the next 6 years, I don't think you're complaining.
Yeah, and again, the side benefit of that is that these guys are going to learn their first-time Dynasty players' mistakes this year. And by next year, they're going to be like, oh, I should be stacking up draft capital. And if they want to come stack up draft capital, there's like one guy that they got to talk to, and that's you.
Amen. Oh, trust me. I've done this strat multiple times. It works wonders.
Yeah, and they might start watching content like ours this time next year and realize that they need to start getting draft capital, and it might be too expensive for them to acquire. So great job. I think you're doing a phenomenal job starting off a new startup. This is how me and Danny, end most of our startups. So that is the end of the video though. 45 minutes or so, give or take. If you guys enjoyed this video at any point, hit the like button, comment any of your thoughts down below as well. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Like I said, if you want to be broken down on future Dynasty Decisions episodes, you can do so one of a couple ways. Number one, our patrons get first priority. Our queue is at about, mid-June right now. So if you don't want to wait until like mid-August by the time we get to you, which is probably when it's going to be, you can become a patron over at patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. If you want to add yourself to the queue and you don't mind waiting, Twitter and Discord is how you can get access to us. Those are both linked down below in the description. You can just DM us directly on there. So with that being said, guys, peace out. Talk to you soon.